Welcome to the Digimed TV channel. My name's David Wortley. I'm the CEO and founder of Digimed TV channel, and I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's event, which is primarily targeted at the Americas. This morning we had the inaugural launch of Digimed TV for the European and Asia event, and we had some very interesting interviews and insightful contributions. Today, this afternoon, we've got another interesting program with some great speakers. So without further ado, I'll give you a little trailer of what to expect this afternoon. So thank you once again for joining me. I'm really excited about some of the conversations that we've got planned for this afternoon. I just want to say a little bit about the Digimed TV channel. It's supported by the International Society of Digital Medicine. My background is that I am one of the vice presidents of the International Society of Digital Medicine, which was founded in 2015 in Nanjing. And they've been instrumental in promoting the cause of digital medicine. I believe that one of the ways in which we can help to establish digital medicine as a significant clinical practice is to share the knowledge and experience of people who are working in this field. And that is why I've been organizing a series of events and webinars over the past few months. And now I've taken it a step further to include live interviews with some of the best people that I know of involved in the use of digital medicine. For those of you who are not familiar with the term digital medicine, in my mind, it means the use of digital technologies for a range of different medical interventions. And these can range from medical education and training to clinical diagnostics to digital therapeutics and rehabilitation practices, and also preventative healthcare. And those have been the themes of the previous events that we've organized today. To give you a taste of what you can expect from some of our interviewees today, I'm going to play you a little bit of a promotional trailer that was put together by the company called Imaginary. I'm going to be interviewing Lucia, Pannese, who's a CEO and founder of Imaginary, who are based in Milan. And they put together a flagship product called Rehability, which is designed for digital medicine practitioners involved in the area of rehabilitation. So take a look at this video trailer, and I'm going to be discussing this with Lucia a little bit later in the program. In this morning's program, I went through part of a presentation that I delivered at an international conference, and this presentation brought out some of the challenges that we face in medicine, global medicine today, and these primarily revolve around the importance of preventative healthcare and issues like lifestyle behaviors. How do we influence lifestyle behaviors? This has come to the fore quite a bit recently with the current pandemic of the coronavirus. And during the pandemic, we've seen that people who are most at risk are those people who have lifestyle related conditions such as obesity. And obesity is a primary factor in some of the most serious causes of mortality that we have today. Things like diabetes and cardiovascular diseases, and even cancer. And some of these lifestyle related conditions, or they do have genetic and environmental factors, but a lot of the issues we have today with medicine and health and well-being are to do with modern lifestyles and the world that we live in. And in many ways, coronavirus has actually been a double-edged sword. It's had a very negative effect on the mental health of people, and we've seen also increases in obesity with people locked in, and they are comfort eating more, they're putting weight on, they're becoming more obese and making themselves a risk of some of these serious conditions. For those people who have chronic health conditions, it's very important that they are compliant with the medical regime. And that's one of the problems with our human nature, is that because there's always a time lag between the things that we do that are bad for our health and when we actually suffer from bad health problems, that it's very difficult to ensure that people live the kind of lifestyle that can give them optimum health conditions. And this is where gamification comes in. And gamification is one of the strengths of a number of my guests this afternoon, in particular Imaginary and Lucia, Pannese. A lot of the applications that they have developed for digital medicine have been based around the use of gamification and enabling technologies to assist with compliance and to make being healthy fun. Which really leads me on to my first guest, who will be appearing in about 10 minutes' time, hopefully. It's Eric Janszen via Zoom, and he's going to be talking to me about the use of virtual reality and some of the applications that they've developed to help people to exercise more and have fun in the process. So I'm going to play a little bit of a video trailer to introduce the kind of applications, VR applications that I use by VR Voom. So VFit is the application that Eric is going to talk about in a little while. Before Eric joins us, I'd like to continue with the slide presentation that I started this morning and look at the impact of digital technologies and artificial intelligence. So I'm just going to share the presentation screen and go through a few slides. So digital technologies and artificial intelligence have had quite a major impact and influence on the direction of future medical healthcare. And what we've seen are developments that help to make medical devices become smarter, more connected, and more affordable. So they're not just the domain of medical professionals. And these devices allow diagnostics to be more precise and reliable. And what we're seeing increasingly is the intelligence and the judgment of medical practitioners increasingly embedded into the devices themselves so that they can provide smart coaching and advice. And this in turn is likely to make patients less reliant on medical professionals in theory, although there are positive and negative aspects of this, which perhaps we'll touch on a little bit later. These kind of devices combined with artificial intelligence mean that clinicians are able to get really hit the ground running faster and probably need a mixture of different skills, but less of the kind of formal training that we've been used to in the past. And I think what we've also seen is a focus of a shift towards preventative healthcare. So, to try and put it as very simply as possible, these developments within digital medicine are not unique to medicine. This is a very general effect of digital technologies. I describe it as digital consumerization. And so it means that the devices that we use every day of our life, things like smartphones, etc., are becoming less and less expensive. And with those devices, because they are becoming less expensive, they're more affordable, they're more accessible, and they are increasingly more and more connected, and the connections enable us to connect to the cloud and a whole range of different applications. So we've seen this shift from technologies which were primarily originally developed for professionals, and they were very much focused on clinicians, proprietary, dumb and unconnected. Nowadays, the technologies that we are using increasingly are designed and targeted for use by consumers. So these are what I call citizen-focused technologies, which are more generic, they're smarter, and they're more connected. Now, I've seen Eric has joined us in the studio now. Welcome, Eric. I'm just going to show one or two more slides before I introduce you. As I mentioned, Eric is a CEO and founder of the VZFit application, which I showed a few minutes ago. Before I introduce Eric and we go into our conversation, I'll just run through a couple of other slides just to illustrate some of the points that I'm trying to make. Is that in the past, the technologies that have been used in clinical care have been technologies which have been primarily designed and used by professionals. But if you look at the bottom, you can see a whole range of different devices which are now affordable, usable, and being bought by consumers. And they're being bought by consumers as a way of helping them to monitor and manage their own health more effectively. So we've seen a whole range of AI related technologies which are used to empower human beings, whether they're surgical practitioners or whether they're used in gamification learning applications, like you see with the laparoscopic surgery training tool on the right hand side. And so digital devices bring this new levels of reliability, freedom, independence, control and precision, and they are extremely attractive. But one of the trends that we've also seen, which I have, again, some reservations about, are those technologies which are being increasingly not just external to human beings, but actually embedded within our bodies for good reason. For example, the insulin pump, which uses a device which is able to detect blood sugar levels and automatically give an insulin injection when it's required most. So these kind of embedded devices are intelligent, and increasingly they're being used to control our health, which I don't necessarily think is always a good thing. So that's an opportune time now for me to introduce Eric Janszen. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to welcome Eric and bring him into the studio. Eric, it's good to see you. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. I only found out about you very, very recently, as you'll see from my communication. And the reason for connecting to you via LinkedIn was that I had some interest from a hospital in the nearby city to me, that's Northampton. This is a hospital that specialises in patients with moderate to severe dementia. They've been using virtual reality for some time to explore the potential therapeutic benefits of virtual reality. And so the research projects that they've been involved in use different kind of VR real world environments to examine the impact of these environments on patients with dementia. So they've primarily focused on environments which are relaxing. So it could be a forest scene with some birds singing, it could be a seaside scene. And so what they've tried to do is to, at the moment, it's basically a visual observation, but they try and record the effect of these kinds of environments on people with dementia. So they contacted me over the weekend and they said, do you know of any solutions which we can use with an exercise bike that will allow our patients to be able to cycle through pleasant countryside and have an experience? And what they said to me was, we don't have a lot of money, unfortunately. So if you know of any solutions which are affordable, we've got exercise bikes. What can you offer? So that I did a bit of Googling and I came across VZ Fit, I guess is what you call it in the USA. We would call it VZ Fit. And so what I'd like you to do, Eric, is first of all to introduce yourself and give a little bit of background to your company and VZ Fit.
Sure. Thank you, David. Thanks for having me on. So Verzoom is the name of the company, and our product is called VZ Fit. And what Verzoom does, as our tagline is virtual reality that moves you. We're the only company that's really figured out how to allow users to move themselves through huge virtual worlds and control their emotion to make it feel very much like the real world. So if you're using a bike you think of it as a kind of controller, and your body becomes kind of the controlling mechanism. So as you pedal, that's how you move yourself through the world, and you steer by leaning. And this very simple control mechanism leads to a huge variety of different kinds of physical activities where you're physically pedaling and moving in the real world, and your avatar is moving through large virtual worlds. Now, the specific application that I think best applies to the case that you're describing is an application that we have called VZ Fit Explorer, and currently it's about to ship on the Oculus Quest store. And the way it works is you have a sensor that you can put on any stationary bike, and you have our application running on an Oculus Quest headset. And what you're able to do is ride through any of 10 million miles of roads that have been mapped by Google Street View. So you can either pick one of the many hundreds of curated rides that we and our thousands of customers have come across through their own experience, or you can enter pretty much any random location and pop up there and ride along. And what you see is a streaming video in 3D. So you're riding through the countryside in New Zealand, and you can stop and look around and take a high resolution picture and send it to your friends and that kind of thing. For this particular case, we have partnered with a company here in the U.S. called XR Health that specifically wants to make use of our application for rehabilitation purposes.
Yeah, I'm familiar with XR Health. In fact, I've used some of their applications. I used applications with a virtual environment which allowed me to test my reaction. So it was a boxing game, and I also used another application which was designed to test my memory, and that involved trying to remember articles as they come off a conveyor belt in an airport baggage reclaim area. And I think XR Health have some great examples, and I know that they're also involved in another VR application called Alcove VR. Are you familiar with that one?
No, I'm not.
Well, I think their collaboration with Alcove VR, this is not primarily a health application. It's basically an Oculus supported application which creates a kind of apartment environment which you're able to customize to yourself. So you can put your own pictures on the wall, and you can take part in a number of different activities, which include watching movies or listening to music with your friends in this environment, showing people around your apartment. But the health application side of it is if you wander around the apartment with your Oculus Quest or Go or whatever device, there is one area which is like a lounge area with a very nice view outside, and it has a coffee table. And it's got a little book on the coffee table which tells you how to manage your health. And there are some applications there which I think XR Health have been involved in developing, therapeutic type applications. Can you just tell me a little bit of background about yourself and how you got involved in this area in the first place?
Well, I'm a lifelong cyclist, and I have had this hope that at some point VR would evolve to the point where I can do what I love to do outdoors and bring that indoors. I'm here in New England, and the weather is not conducive to cycling for about half the year, and I'm stuck indoors on a stationary bike or like everyone else. And the hope was to find a way to make that experience compelling. And I partnered with my good friend Eric Malfi, who's the chief architect on some pretty well-known titles like in the gaming space, like Guitar Hero, Rock Band, Dance Central, where there's a very somewhat unique combinations of new kinds of controllers and new kinds of game software, and it seemed like the perfect guy to get together with to kind of develop this idea of how you would turn a stationary bike into basically a controller for a new kind of exercise. And that was back in 2014, and we founded the company in 2015, and we're based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And we shipped our first commercial product in 2016, and we're now on our third generation product, which we're launching really in a couple of weeks. And our thought was that it would, you have this bringing the outdoors indoors was the primary concept, but then we discovered pretty early on that the experience is so so involving that it works very, very well particularly for an audience of consumers that has difficulty motivating themselves to exercise. So we have customers in their 70s and older who've really never done any kind of regular exercise their whole lives, but find that VZ Fit is just gets them exercising daily, and they just have I think it's the idea is that it's fun, and if we make it fun and varied and exciting, that's something you want to do rather than something that you should do. So we kind of take the should out of exercise. So there was a study done by Cornell University London, together with Exeter, peer-reviewed research that was published last year, and it basically demonstrated why it works. And what they measured was the level of disassociation produced by this combination of your being in the virtual world and you're reacting to the world's reacting to you, and your sense of your body and your fatigue and any kind of pain you might be experiencing kind of falls away because you're so involved in this activity. And so they were able to measure that in a clinical study and explain, really why it's working.
So, do you see at some point in time, I have a little bit of familiarity with this, that increasingly the FDA in the United States are beginning to accept gamified medical solutions. So do you see at some point in the future that you might go for developing applications which are designed to provide clinical outcomes?
Well, we had to make a decision. Focus wins the day when you're in a startup business. So you have to choose a market, and B2C, business to consumer, is really the focus for us now. And that decision was largely hinged on our belief that Oculus was going to be successful not only in building a mass consumer product, but also a viable ecosystem for content. And they've done that. They're now dozens of companies shipping software on the Quest, making millions of dollars a year in revenue. So that means there's enough platforms out there for it to be viable for companies to make investments to build content for it. We have spent some time in the B2C market in commercial gyms, and we had a partnership that brought us into that, but we made a decision to focus entirely on the B2C market starting back in 2019 when the Quest first started to ship. We do understand that there's a great opportunity for us in rehabilitation and other kinds of B2B markets, but for the time being, we're going to stay focused on the consumer market.
One of the things that intrigues me about VZ Fit also, and it's something which I think it has in common with a lot of other different kinds of applications, is that you are building a community of users, and those users contribute content. So is it particularly easy to create content which can be used on VZ Fit? I understand with the Google Street View you can create your own customized Street View tours. I'm a Google Street View Trusted Pro, so I do this myself. Are there any other kinds of applications that people are developing for your platform?
Well, we do have an SDK for third-party development. We haven't, again, been pushing it very hard for the last couple of years because, again, of our focus on our own first-party platforms. But yeah, we have a significant amount of interest in other firms developing versions of our concept that's moving through the world, and the SDK. We do have a patent on this technology, and the SDK embodies that and lets you take advantage of those motion controls. So yeah, that will be something that we plan to do some more in the future.
Could I just ask you just a little bit of a semi-technical question, and that is that when I looked on Google and I had a look around your website, there was mention of the VZ Fit sensors, and I had a conversation with one of your UK people who are promoting VZ-Fit, a guy called Philip Turner. You may know him, but I had a conversation with him, and he spoke very highly of the product. But what he said was that you were not pushing the VZ-Fit sensors so much because that you've got a lot of the control already within the Oculus Quest 2 headset or the hand controllers. Is that the case?
Well, we did build our own sensor and sold that for a number of years. The reason we did that is that the particular way that our application works, we needed a sensor that didn't have any kind of latency, so that when you move the pedal, 2 millimeters, you moved in the virtual world 2 millimeters instantaneously without any kind of delay. And we didn't find that in any third-party, cadence sensors that really weren't designed for that, right? A cadence sensor measures cadence like 1, 2, 3, not, granular kinds of motion. However, over the years, the cadence sensors on the market, the Wahoos and so forth, got better and better to the point where it really didn't, the difference between the quality of the experience that you could have with our sensor versus an inexpensive third-party sensor didn't justify the cost of our continuing to make our own. So we discontinued our VZ sensor, and now we recommend a number of really quite inexpensive third-party sensors that you can just buy off of Amazon.
Yeah, I've got one of those sensors myself, and I'm going to be hopefully installing it a little bit later this week when my bike arrives. It's one of the cadence sensors that you recommend. So am I going to find it a piece of cake to attach this to my exercise bike? I think it's one of the ones that I've seen on your website, but it also includes things like heart rate monitors, etc. So will I be able to control that through the Oculus controller? How does that work? Is it easy to set up?
Yes, it's actually very easy to set up. So the way it works is the sensor, put it on the crank arm of your stationary bike, and our application running on the Quest, the way the sensors are working, it's Bluetooth in, I think it's called promiscuous mode. So it just automatically picks it up. You don't have to pair it or anything. So it automatically detects your sensor. And there's an ID that it uses to connect it to your account. So there's a connection between that sensor and your VZ-Fit account. And then subsequent to that, every time you get on your bike and pedal, it wakes up and connects you and tracks your distance and your calories and your goals and your status on the leaderboards and so forth. So that's really your connection to your VZ-Fit account.
That's wonderful. Well, Eric, I'm very grateful to you for joining me this afternoon. We've been joined in the studio by Julie LeMoine, who's a wonderfully talented lady, an expert into VR, XR, AR, you name it. Have you heard of Julie before?
I'm sorry, I've read I haven't.
Okay, well, I'm going to add it to the stream so that you can see Julie for yourself. Julie's next up on my program, so I'm going to say, is there anything you want to say before I start talking to Julie?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. I enjoyed speaking with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Please feel free to stay online and follow the rest of the program. And I hope we can have more conversations once I've got used to VZ-Fit in my own environment. So thank you once again. Thank you.
Well, very good. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now, Julie, one of my most favorite talented ladies in the world.
Awesome.
Awesome. So have you got your PhD now? Sorry, my memory is a little bit foggy on this, but I know this was one of your big ambitions to get your PhD.
So I'm close. I'm in the middle of 60 study visits COVID slowed me down quite a bit, but we reworked it all. And if somebody that works in virtual reality can't redo a study to do it virtually, I don't know what the world's coming to. So we're in the middle of it right now. So hopefully by the end of summer.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I hope it all works out well for you. So to begin with, I'm going to hand the stage over to you. I just want you to say a little bit about, first of all, yourself and your background, and then talk in more detail about your involvement in all kinds of virtual mixed augmented reality, etc.
Sure.
Over to you.
Okay, so I've been around for about 35 years since undergraduate degree in computer science, and which means I worked in particular in protocols. I helped us all build the internet. I worked in the area of cryptography protocols for the internet for years and years when it was the ARPANET. And then I had a great beginning career in the first 15 years in computer security, had some fun, worked on things like securing space shuttle software and banking systems and all kinds of really amazing, interesting things. And about 15, maybe 17 years ago, I turned towards using social computing, 3D gaming. And so about 15 to 17 years ago is when I really started in XR. And so that transition might sound funny, but I've always worked like you, David, in the use of applied XR and gaming technology for serious use. So sort of serious gaming for the last 15 to 17 years. And going to fast forward to now, I'm working in the area of health and well-being. I am, yes, getting a PhD. It's a little bit later in my career after 35 years of background to get a PhD, but it's never too late for that. And I am a PhD candidate at the UCD in Dublin. And I am a visiting scholar doing my fieldwork at the University of Massachusetts Medical School outside of the Boston area at the famed Eunice Kennedy Shriver Center that works with individuals with autism and their families. And I am in particular doing the PhD research is around digital characters that help individuals with autism, teenagers, young adults. And I'm working with wearable augmented reality glasses so that they could wear them out into the real world and get assistance from digital characters in the real world. So that I'm really pushing the envelope with that work in augmented reality, but my day-to-day job, I do work with virtual reality, 3D gaming, and have done that since my days as one of the principals. I was a vice president and fellow at Fidelity Investments, where I started working in the 3D gaming and virtual world area. So very long history, many years of about 17. I was adding them all up the other day, working in 3D gaming and 3D technology and social gaming as well. So that's my background. Hopefully that's interesting. I've done an awful lot of I've started 5 software companies, co-founded or founded, but I've also been a large company entrepreneur, like I was at Fidelity Investments. I spent 10 years at the MITRE Corporation working in advanced technologies. So long time. And I'm about to become Dr. Julie, I hope, this summer. So.
Yeah, well, I hope I remain in your kind of corral of friends and acquaintances. It's nice to rub shoulders with, I won't say rich and famous, but
just
talented.
Not even famous. I say, well, one of the things we'll do is I have an avatar and she now wears a hat for a rock because I say nobody knows who I am. I'm just that woman building these things underneath a rock, right? So I appreciate being known by you. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've been talking a little bit about gamification, and as you just joined us while I was talking to Eric Janszen, and the reason why he was involved in this conversation is that I was approached by a hospital in Northampton who they primarily deal with patients who've got moderate to severe dementia. And they have done some work with exploring the use of virtual reality environments as a therapeutic condition, mainly just to establish, I think initially, more anecdotally than anything else, although it was a serious research project. They had a number of different environments, such as forests with bird singing, pleasant noise, seascapes, mountaintop scenes, and they use these with their patients, and particularly the patients who had more disturbed conditions, to see whether these relaxing environments were able to support them. But this hospital, or one of the doctors at the hospital, he got in touch with me and asked me about the use of virtual reality with something like an exercise bike. Because she felt that if it could be possible for her patients to have a virtual reality experience where they could cycle through some pleasant countryside, then this would also be very therapeutic for them. And that's where I came across VZ Fit and some of the applications. Now, so I've even ordered my own bike. I've already got the sensor and the Oculus Quest 2. So I'm just waiting for my bike, and I'm going to see whether it works on me, because I am interested in creating perhaps some virtual tours using some of the content that I've got. So the content that you work with, is it primarily synthetic environment, or do you do much work with what you might call, realistic 360-degree video and photography?
Sure. So that's a great question. So for the last about 11 years, I've been really focused in multiplayer as well. And how that relates to sort of mixed medium. So I've built, believe it or not, the 3D classrooms that I've built were used at places like Stanford and MIT Sloan, and these are multiplayer. And for years, this kind of technology has been out there in virtual worlds. And now all my work is on top of game engines like Unreal and Unity, and we're doing these multiplayer classrooms, or meeting spaces. So believe it or not, the mixed reality meeting spaces work that I've done has been going on for like 12 years. So yes, we'll slap live video streams or pre-recorded videos up on the walls of three-dimensional meeting spaces. And so one of the things that folks like me find is that it's a big wow during COVID that this is even possible with some of these VR tools, but there's a number of us that have been working and even deploying these at very big institutions for more than a decade with multiplayer. And so that's so mixed medium, where they have the real live video or the pre-recorded video in combination with 3D meeting spaces in combination with multiplayer. And so when I talk about my research, we're doing augmented reality, putting characters into the real world. So there's nothing but mixed medium there, right? So very forward in that space. And then in the VR and the multiplayer space, almost ever since sort of the days that know people that know Second Life, almost since the beginning there. What was that, like 15 years ago? We've been working on multiplayer meeting spaces for companies and universities and other businesses and charities and even big global efforts for health and other things like that. So yeah, so I work in that. That's almost like my day job, is to do these multiplayer, multimedia, mixed reality spaces with video and with 3D, and whether it's pre-recorded or live. So I think that's just so exciting that we're getting some focus on that now, and also that means more money goes into the market and the products are getting more reasonable, more affordable, more capable, and just the user interface is becoming more simple, so much more friendly for the end users. So I think sometimes when I talk about the work that I do, I have a couple of images. I don't know if you want some image sharing on this.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think you should be able to share your image.
Yeah, if you want to see it, let me.
Yeah, sure.
Let me throw up my screen. Okay, so I'm going to go application window. Nope, it's not going to let me do that. Okay, so entire screen. I'll share my entire screen.
Okay.
I don't know. It's not letting me do it.
Isn't it? Oh, okay. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I allocate permission. Just let me see from I know I can't see anything on the screen immediately to allow me for you
Oh, that's
to
all right.
share it. But yeah, okay. So yeah, I mean, I do I identify with that. In fact, I think I probably mentioned this to you before, that you and I, in different ways, have been often a little bit ahead of the curve.
Sure.
And suddenly, people are suddenly realizing what is possible, and they're kind of playing catch up when you've been doing these things for years and years and years, and you bang your head against the wall to try and get people to to understand.
Yep. Well, I mean, and some of it is understanding the sociology and the psychology of being in virtual spaces with other users when we think about multiplayer. A lot of the augmented reality for health and well-being, which is where I spend all my time now, is a little still single user. So a helper or a guide or something like that, overlay of information on medical equipment. But a couple of years back, I worked with a medical device company. One of my clients, I've worked with more than 25 clients to use XR in healthcare. And one of the clients started to understand that the middleware is really these game engines now. And what you build on top of it, if you're building like a heavy thinker in this space, you're going to build capability on top of these game engines that can go to augmented reality, can go to virtual reality, and can go to PCs and computers and laptops. And so when you build like that, you start thinking about augmented reality, virtual reality. They're displays, just like your display that you're looking at now. And so when you're building a health application, whether it's preparatory for surgery or post medical treatment or for pain, sometimes it's important to think about whether or not the user will always have their augmented or virtual reality, or whether you can do a lot for them even if they're just on their laptop with the same experience. And so I think being a little ahead after all those years of working in this space gives you that insight to be able to start building, now that the tools are more affordable, that you just get your clients or the application that you're building is just a little more forward and a little more easy for people to use. And I hope that the lessons that we have learned over the years, lead us into helping others to build these types of applications so that they can really spread out and help us in health. So I do spend a lot of time talking to people to try and help them, the newer creators, to think a little bit more broadly about how they can build for any display, on top of these, I think of game engines as middleware now.
Yeah. I guess this is a trap that those of us who have been involved in technology for many, many years, we can fall into this trap of assuming that people know about these things or they've heard about them beforehand, and more often than not that they haven't. I know we've got Lucia Pannese in the studio with us at the moment, so she is next up in a couple of minutes. But I would like just to ask you about something I saw, I think, on the web a couple of days ago, which was some technology which overlays onto a contact lens to provide augmented reality. Have you heard of that? Have you seen that?
So for a while there, I was watching Intel and the work that they were doing with the little glasses where they were just putting the data. So that was pretty exciting to see about the contact lenses. And it makes me think of the book Snow Crash. So anybody that hasn't seen that should read it from years back, about how we'll all wear information augmenters. And it calls to my research that I'm doing, and not only am I doing it in augmented reality, but I'm also doing it in inclusive design and critical disability theory. And the reason why I just bring those up at the last minute is one of the things that kind of work does for us is it ensures that individuals that we might think have maybe intellectual disabilities or differences, non-neurotypical, we would say, they can get the extra help without others around them knowing that they're getting it. And so as much as you might take that as but they might get too much help or something like that in a classroom, of course, with this kind of security background, you can control what help you get. But we're just sort of enabling the future of removing, the sort of disability stigmas and things like that. So I think it's just so exciting from a intellectual health perspective, as well as all kinds of things, just all kinds of in the field surgeon help, and just, it's very exciting. Yeah, I saw that too, and I was like, go, go, go. I think it's text-based right now, so we'll see what happens when we get more visual.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, Julie. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I'm going to bring Lucia Pannese in now. You're more than welcome to stay online and join in the conversation. But I shall just park your screen to one side for the minute and say thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll carry on the conversation with Lucia.
I will. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Julie. Bye. Well, hello, Lucia. This is Groundhog Day. we meet again.
That's great.
For those who didn't participate in the morning session, Lucia was one of my interviewees in this morning's program, and we were talking about Imaginary's flagship product Rehability. So at the risk of repeating ourselves, Lucia, perhaps we can begin again for those people who weren't involved this morning. You'd just like to say a few words about yourself, your background, Imaginary, and the kind of work that you do now.
Of course. Thank you, David. So my name is Lucia Pannese. I'm the CEO and founder of Imaginary, based in Milano, a company I founded 17 years ago. My background is in mathematics, and the company has always been working in serious games, so games with a purpose other than entertainment, and we work a lot in EU-funded research. So we started 17 years ago with games for training, which was targeted at education, but also medical training, training in companies. And then some years later, say some 12 years ago, we started with our first medical project. And soon we stumbled, actually, by chance. We won this project about telerehabilitation. So our great adventure towards our now flagship product started over 8 years ago with a project called Rehab at Home, which I'm sure you remember. So yes. Already 8 years ago, we started discussing with universities and research institutions, as well as hospitals and so on, all over Europe, how you can offer rehabilitation in the form of telerehab. So what you could do to engage patients, to also guarantee adherence to a therapy, which is already quite difficult now. And imagine if you leave the patient at home alone, and still you ask them to engage in a game-based, actually, telerehabilitation software, so a program that offers both motor and cognitive stimuli. So we work with very many neurological teams of specialists, so from the neurologists to the physiotherapists, the neuropsychologists, and so on. We found out how they treat patients today, elderly patients from 60 to 95. We did participatory design with these patients, which means that we involved these patients in the design process of games, and the games have to guarantee the same efficacy level and accuracy level of traditional physiotherapy and cognitive stimulation to these kind of patients. So the scientific background needs to be preserved very well. Plus, you need to motivate patients, so you need to work with psychologists to find out how this specific target group of people, so elderly patients with neurology diseases, how they can be motivated actually to train on their own with technology, although they are obviously not digital natives. And this has been our adventure. Now the product is a medical device. So we have 22 scientific publications demonstrating that we met our objectives. And actually, we're starting the market uptake of this product, which is a very interesting, exciting phase, because now everything is changing at a very quick pace, of course.
Yeah, of course. And I've just been talking to Julie LeMoine about her a project which is to do with the autism spectrum. I know it's going back quite a few years, but perhaps you just remind me of the work that you'd already done in this sort of space, and it's going back quite a long time.
Yes, actually, we had two projects about autism. One was for young adults, so those people who need to address a job for the first time. And this was also a small EU-funded project where we investigated how to support this kind of people with high-functioning skills to address a job interview. And then we gave them 3 sample settings. One was a job in an office, so sort of secretary job. The other one was in a supermarket where they have to work in the warehouse. And the third one was in a gardening center where they have to pack flowers according to the orders that they receive. And that was a very interesting project, my first one on autism. And then recently we had another one, also a EU-funded project for younger children from 7 to something like 14, where we supported them to regain or train social skills. So everything starts at school, and they play in a space shuttle, and they have to travel through the planets. There is a sort of organizational dashboard in the background. So there's a platform in the background where teachers can decide some very specific trainings for this kind of impairment that you have to address or support that you have to give, where they can really switch on and off planets, because on each planet there's a different training happening. So for example, on one you have the break at school where you have to learn a little bit to socialize with your friends for a short time. On the other one you have a trip which takes a bit longer, so it's a full day maybe at the sea with all your class. And in the other one you have to address the teacher during a lesson because, for example, you have to ask for permission to go to the toilet during the lesson. So it's all this kind of dynamics which are critical for these children, and they can be offered in personalized levels of difficulty and personalized settings for them.
I think, I don't know whether you know Julie before, whether you've ever met physically or virtually.
Virtually.
But you seem, yeah, virtually. So you seem to have a lot in common. Well, what I'd like to do is just play the rehability trailer, so that for those of people who weren't involved this morning, they'll get an idea of what rehability is all about.
Thank you.
One of the things that we talked about this morning was a certification process to get a CE to CE mark, and I was a bit surprised when you said that once you have this CE mark, then the software has to stay the same. So does that mean if you have different hardware devices, the software's got to run on those hardware devices?
I'm not really sure what happens if you change the interaction device, but I'm pretty sure that there's a register. You have to at least to change the version of the software to make a note in the registry of changes. I know that the easiest thing is to correct bugs. That's no problem. You have a code with 3 figures actually. So the last one is the small one that you can change easily. So if there's a bug, you just change the last number. So instead of 01, it's 02, whatever. With interaction devices, I think you should revisit risk analysis and things like that. Definitely, if you add something like pathologies or new games or something like that, you have really to recertify it, because you have to show that still the risk analysis that you did is valid, that the effectiveness is still valid, and so on and so forth.
Well, I think there are many hurdles to overcome when you get to the certification process. But I'd like to thank you again for joining me this afternoon, Lucia. Please feel free to stay with us. Steve Dunn is in the studio now, so I'm going to bring him onto screen and say bye-bye to you for a minute. Please stay. Julie stayed in the studio as well, and if you're still there at the end, I will bring you all back onto screen and we can say cheerio to each other. So thank you, Lucia. Thank you. Okay, Steve, I accidentally removed you from the stream. These bits of new technology, you know, sometimes they get a bit they're difficult to get used to, but I'm still learning, and hopefully my brain is still active enough to be able to handle all of these things. So thank you. You joined me this morning in this morning session, and I found your interview and all the interviews are absolutely fascinating. For those people who weren't involved this morning, perhaps we'd like to start. I'd like to start at the beginning again and just ask you to introduce yourself, to say a bit about your background and the kind of work that you do at Medical Realities.
Yes, thank you, David. Yeah, great pleasure to be back again. Yes, I'm the chairman of Medical Realities, but my background is in immersive technology and also technology from film and television originally. But I've been working in immersive technology now for over the last 15 years, both in augmented reality and virtual reality. And I was always looking for a particular special use case where we could use immersive ideas and immersive technology to the best outcome. And I was very lucky to meet my co-founder of Medical Realities, Professor Shafi Ahmed, just over 5 years ago. And we started off with the premise of, in actual fact, trying to democratize medical training, especially for students. But since then, Medical Realities has grown to include not only graduates, but postgraduates, and also working with people to do continued personal development, education. So throughout their career, no matter what they're doing, whether they're a consultant, a surgeon, a doctor, an anaesthetist, a nurse, or a paramedic. We see a lot of things, a lot of exciting things that we're going to be doing over the next 12 months. And we're just really, really excited to be in the space of using immersive technology to help democratize medical training and education, both in this country, but also around the world.
Well, I was very pleased earlier on to talk to Julie LeMoine, who's still with us in the USA. Julie has got a stellar career in computing. I won't go through all of the things that she's done in her life, but it always impresses me to listen to her. Before you came into the studio, she was just talking about how some of the technologies like involved in mixed reality and augmented reality, live streaming, etc., we've been able to do for years. Some of the stuff that she was doing is going back years and years, and now probably partly because of coronavirus, it's becoming more mainstream and more acknowledged, really. Has this been your experience?
Yeah, so absolutely, and I think a lot of the technologies we're using now, if you trace their sort of origins back, you're talking sort of 50 or 60 years. But it's really only in the last few years, I think since probably 2012, that when virtual reality, I say, got reinvented by Palmer Luckey, it's all about making it accessible and affordable. Because virtual reality was around before 2012, but it's incredibly expensive. And as we progress, the hardware is getting better, the software is getting better. What we can do and what we can create is getting better and better. Just over 4 years ago, we did the world's first live streamed 360-degree training operation, which was seen by over 55,000 people around the world in 142 different countries. But I have to tell you, that was an incredibly difficult logistic problem and used up an awful lot of bandwidth at the time. Now, if we did that again, and we're planning to do certain live events later on this year, it's a lot easier to do, and technically the challenges are not so great. I don't come from a medical background. I come from a creative background. I know a little bit about technology, but I lean on people like my partner in medical realities, Shafi Ahmed, for the medical side, but also some very talented people on the tech side who help really sort of bring to fruition our vision of where we want to get to in the future.
So just looking at the live streaming of operations, what kind of setup would you have in an operating theatre? Would it be a single 360-degree camera, perhaps supplemented by more traditional cameras? What's the kind of configuration that you're likely to have in a live event?
Yes, absolutely. And in actual fact, when we did our first live streaming, we did actually want to have two 360-degree cameras running at the same time, but technically that just wasn't possible. It was actually sort of using up so much bandwidth that we couldn't do it. But now we actually utilize a whole sort of variety of capture techniques, from initial 360-degree, which is our sort of central core, which we wrap everything around. But we could have upwards of 5 or 6 cameras sort of concentrating on specific areas that are happening in the operating theatre now. So we can make the content very rich and very interesting. So it's not just purely about the surgeon and the operation. You can also see in detail what other people are doing, whether that's the senior theatre nurse or the other surgeons working with inside the operating theatre on a particular operation.
Looking at the effect of coronavirus on your work, we've had a discussion with the other interviewees this afternoon, and it seems to be that coronavirus has been a bit of a double-edged sword. In fact, in many cases, for companies like yourself, it's actually a blessing in disguise, because people cannot meet physically. It gives people an opportunity to be able to enjoy these experiences and these training exercises without that kind of physical contact.
Yes, absolutely. A double-edged sword is exactly the right way to put it, because we haven't been able to add to our library of operations very much in the last 12 months, simply because we're not allowed in operating theatres here in the UK at the moment. But we intend to get back and sort of add to our ever increasing library, and we're working on in collaboration with Health Education England in order to actually sort of bring this into fruition. They've got some very interesting ideas about how they can use immersive technology both in AR and VR to help people, especially medical students, who haven't had access to wards or to operating theatres, and it's really sort of safe to say that unfortunately in the last year a lot of medical students have had their normal training and education program really disrupted, and it's with the use of virtual technology such as medical realities provides that we can actually sort of fill some of the gaps that they have now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, Steve.
My pleasure.
I've got Leon Eisen, who's next up in the interviews. He's joined me in the studio, so I'm going to invite him in now. And any concluding remarks, Steve, you want to go before I remove you from the stream?
No, just to say that, yeah, thank you for inviting me, and I think all the everybody you've had has something very on today, had something very interesting to say, and I'm captivated to hear what else is going to be said. Okay,
well, I hope you'll stay with us for the rest of the session, and once Leon's strutted his stuff, we'll perhaps bring you all on screen at the same time, and we can all say goodbye together. So thanks very much. And now, Leon, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. You look at your environment is quite a bit different from what I remember from a previous occasion. It's a very professional setup. You look as if you've got now with a nice looking microphone and headset. So could you begin, Leon, but just by introducing yourself and saying just a little bit about your background, how you got involved in digital medicine, and what you do now.
Hi, good afternoon, David, and thanks for invitation to participate. And as you see, I prepared. I started working in medtech first, like engineer 20 years ago, after I finished my PhD in physics. And I was involved for a long time in development of many very interesting medical devices. And step by step, I somehow entered into digital health era, because this started exactly something like 15 years ago. And because just medtech is not enough, nobody is investing today in just medical devices, people investing and looking for solutions. And solution includes medical devices, all ecosystem, digital processes, services. So I would say that today healthcare system is built, or vendors of in healthcare system should cover, I would say, pyramid value proposition. I think on the top of this pyramid there are vendors of sensors, just sensors. They develop sensors and they vendor this sensor to some companies developing wearable devices, for example, or some other type of devices. And these companies deliver data, and this data should be somehow collected and processed, including AI, that today is commodity already. So, and the most basic value and most important value is services. So the most valued companies, they deliver all these pyramids at the same time. So they have sensors, they have monitoring systems and processing, patient management software, and they develop services for like healthcare provider services or telemedicine services or services for the pharma, for phase 2, 3 patient trials. This is how it looks like healthcare system from technological point of view.
Okay. Can I ask you about oxytone? Oxytone is an FDA-approved device. If I remember correctly, it's one of the first ones to be approved by the FDA in the USA. How do you see the marketplace developing? What about competition from the likes of Apple Watch or devices that are not medically approved? How do these fit into the ecosystem?
Everything find its place in ecosystem, because people from point of disease and health, it's a full spectrum. So people could be totally healthy, partially diseased, and totally diseased in a very advanced stage of their disease. And for each type of patients or each type of PPL, you need a different approach. For example, if we're talking about relatively healthy people who are looking for to change their behavior, who are looking for to monitor their behavior, sport, life, they could buy Apple, and this is very good for them. If we're talking about high-risk patients just discharged from the hospital, you have to catch up with some event of this patient: hypertension, sleep apnea event, desaturation event, problems with breathing. You cannot use Apple because it's not medical grade. So you missed events, you miscalculate, you have some false alerts. So in this case, you have to use some medical grade devices. So nobody knows where is the line between these two markets and these two applications. Each physician decides by himself what kind of devices they are looking for to use for specific case. But actually, all these spectrum of offering has its market.
Okay. So there's room in the marketplace for a range of different solutions. So Oxytone, just say about the value proposition and the services that the Oxytone device provides.
Yeah, Oxytone is dedicated specifically for high-risk patients, for very much diseased patients, very much ill, mostly in acute stage or post-acute stage or post-operative stage. Because it's a medical device, so we succeeded to take almost all vital signs that usually people measure in hospital, and we put it on the patient wrist, and very unique technology. All measurement happens around ulnar bone. Ulnar bone is some bone here, as you can see. And it's elastic technology. We have 30 patents on this technology. And today, only three companies today have FDA clearance on wrist medical devices. All other just wellness devices. And today we are only on the market. Other two companies are not in the market with wrist devices. Actually, this is specifically, we call it maybe medical grade warehouse for patient monitoring at acute stage. And the most interesting here, and this is a trend actually, today if you take any telemedicine company, they offer their patients some kit. Kit includes blood pressure monitor, pulse oximeter, some scale and other monitoring devices. So the main issue, how you can make all these in one device, because first of all, patient has to manage this kit, to have different measurements. It requires some activity that some patient cannot make. And second, all these measurements patient make in time division. So you cannot have synchronized data. You cannot at the same time to have some pattern of blood oxygen saturation, pulse rate, heart rate variability, blood pressure taken from the same place at the same time. It doesn't happen. And it's also expensive. It's not usable, it's expensive, and data is not continuous, and usually we miss critical event. So the holy grail, how you can combine all these in one device, so patient take it, create data, generate data, and then you can apply data interoperability to process this data and share with your healthcare provider. So this is what Oxytone is doing. We measure blood oxygen saturation, pulse rate, HRV, activity, skin temperature, respiration rate, and soon we will add blood pressure. So from one place you can have some kind of, we call it halter, to follow the patient vital signs and to catch up with event and definitely to help patient in time if real alert happens. So we eliminate false alert, we have real alert, validated alert based on correlation analysis of all these vital signs taken together, and this dramatically improve patient outcome and make care is much better and timely.
I can understand that model. Could I just ask you a little bit about the kind of aggregation of data and analytics, which are based on personalized experiences of healthcare? Because every patient is different, and I would have thought that, you know, over a period of time, if you get a critical mass of patients, you can actually collect some really interesting clinical data about patterns and factors which influence mortality and recovery rate, etc. What's your view on that?
You raised two very important questions. First question, very specific data for patient, and a second question about population health. Definitely, if you have a lot of patients and we have very specified data for each patient, it will add into the population health and make population health very much also specialized and hyper-personalized as well. That sounds somehow not logical, but population health is based on many different points, and this is very important to have the whole spectrum and follow disease, what happens in real time in a full spectrum of patients. So this is what we are going to do, but first we start to aggregate data. So it's like medical data warehouse. So our customer could take it like a black box, I would say. So they could apply our product to generate data in real time, many channels. We have 6 channels of data in real time. And then they can apply real time at the same time offline processing capabilities, machine learning to identify the patient baseline, and then to follow patient change of the baseline, any deviation taken like a pattern. If you take any artificial intelligence medical tools today, they based on separate vital signs measurements. So you take blood oxygen saturation, you take pulse, you have the baseline, you have any deviation, you have alert because of deviation. This is not the pattern. And usually these alerts are false alerts. So you can ask any nurse, she will say that the 90% of alert that make us crazy. So this is not the case if you have the full pattern and you have measurements not taken once a day, even twice a day. You have measurements taken every second. So you have all events in place. So you can catch up with these events, some deterioration, when it gets back, what amplitude of this deterioration. Some deterioration could happen for a couple of minutes or even seconds if you're talking about sleep apnea or some hypertension events. And then everything gets back and you don't know what happens. And if you have continuous data, correlated data, oxygen saturation goes down, pulse rate goes up, activity changes. So you have the same pattern all the time, and this pattern repeats itself. You can apply this pattern for patient better care. You can design very hyper-personalized therapeutic strategy. And by the way, drug titration for pharma as well.
I just, on a final question, I presume that you're talking to me from the States at the moment, are you?
From the stage, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
But we hear about the success of the vaccination strategy in Israel. Would you like to make? I know you come from Israel. Would you like to make some sort of comments on Israel's the effectiveness of their public health regime?
It's very effective. Before vaccination, a couple of months ago, we had about 9,000 new cases every day. And today, I read today that we had yesterday about 183 cases or something like this. But I have to mention that Israel is a very small company. So logistics is much easier than UK or even US logistics to make people vaccinated. So it's quite easy to do it. And what's important, it was very nice implemented. And people came to make all these, and they're happy about it. And I did it even 2 months ago, and we have a lot of vaccine for all of our citizens. So it's quite easy if you have small company. It's quite easy to manage it, and if you manage it correctly, everything works.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm now going to add our other guests onto the stream. So I'm going to bring back in Steve and Julie and Lucia, if she's still there. Yes, she is. And say thank you very much to all of you. Have any of you got anything you would like to ask each other, or any comments that you'd like to make? Just stick your hand up, and I'll give you the chance to speak.
Just
No,
thank you for setting up this marvelous event once again, David.
No, it's my pleasure, and I get a great buzz from being surrounded by very talented people with a lot of experience. So it's a great pleasure to. Yes, Julie.
Well, I just want to say to Leon that I think the sensor topics that he's been bringing up are so important to like effective science. You know, so the notion of using virtual reality with the right type of sensors. So there's some really early work going on in there that's becoming more and more valuable around the sensors around VR. So I just appreciate your pyramid and your comments around the technology in that area, because pretty soon we need those to be commoditized as well, because most of the people that are creating those are creating, you know, one-offs for their product line instead of building out of consumer products. So that's really important, I think.
Right. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments, guys?
It's great.
No. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure. Well, I hope very much that you will be involved in future events. I learned a lot from today, actually, what works and what doesn't work. I think what works best are the interviews rather than my monologues and presentation slides, and it's far less stressful interviewing you guys than it is trying to go through a slide presentation. So I'm going to focus on doing interviews in my future events, and you can look forward, or if you look forward to being invited to join me again on future events. So for the moment, I'm going to say cheerio for now, and I'm going to close with just a little sting video just to show people some of the webinar recordings that we've done over the last few months. So bye for now, guys. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.